Hi, everyone. David Taylor from the Effective Writing Center. And it's a real pleasure to be here with you in CSIA 310, Cybersecurity Processes and Technology. Why is it a pleasure to be here? Because your professor has done us a real favor by providing a model paper written by a former student on your case study number 1. So what we're going to do is to review the assignment directions for case study number 1, and then we're going to take a really close look at the student model paper to see how it fulfilled the assignment requirements so well. And then, by studying those assignment directions and the model paper, you can do the same thing. So let's get started by looking first at the assignment directions for case study number 1.
Let's begin by reading through the case scenario. Red Clay Renovations, the client, has requested that your company research and recommend an endpoint protection platform which will provide host-based protection for the laptop PCs used by its construction managers and architects. These employees design and manage construction projects using a web-based project management system. Keep in mind this phrase, web-based. The laptops are also used to access web-based corporate email servers and additional web-based applications used for internal business operations. So you see there are 3 instances of web-based in those 2 sentences, giving you a good clue as to what your endpoint protection platform is up against. Their laptops are running the Windows 8 8.1 operating system, and another wrinkle for you, cannot be upgraded to Windows 10 due to compatibility programs in a business-critical proprietary software package. The Windows 8 8.1 laptops currently use Microsoft Windows Defender and Microsoft Windows Firewall to provide host-based protection against malware, spyware, and intrusions. So far, those are all that the computers have on them. Now, the client's IT manager wants an endpoint protection product that is A, easy to use, B, deployable on individual laptops as host-based protection, and 3, automatically updates itself, patches and virus definition files. Automatic updates could be a problem since the laptops are rarely connected to the company's networks. Instead, the employees use an intermittent cellular connection to access the internet while visiting customers and construction sites. So you will want to be sure to address these limitations that the client is placing upon the product he or she wishes to buy. Let's get into your instructions specifically. First, you are to conduct some research. That research includes reviewing week 1 readings. 2, choosing one endpoint protection platform products from the Gartner Magic Quadrant analysis, and that link is provided in your weekly readings. Then you are to research your chosen product using the vendor's website and product information brochures. Vendors for highly rated products will provide a copy of Gartner's most recent Magic Quadrant report on their websites, but registration is required. In addition, you are to find 3 or more additional sources which provide reviews for your chosen product or information about endpoint protection platforms. So at least those 3 additional sources. Then you are to write a 3-page summary of your research. This is a briefing paper. And in this 3-page summary, your professor will be looking for 1, an introduction or overview for the security technology category. In other words, cover the idea of endpoint protection platforms. 2, a review of the features, capabilities, and deficiencies for your selected vendor and product. 3, so we're talking about at least 3 sections so far in your 3-page summary. Discussion of how the selected product could be used by your client to support its cybersecurity objectives by doing the things it wants it to do, reducing risk, increasing resistance to threats and attacks, decreasing vulnerabilities, etc. You have one last section, a closing section in which you restate your recommendation for a product, include the three most important benefits. So, as we review the model paper, we're going to be looking for those four sections. Introduction to the idea of endpoint protection platforms, a review of the feature and capabilities for your vendor and product, a discussion of how that particular product can help your client meet its goals, and finally a closing section in which you restate the recommendation, including its benefits. Also, as you write your briefing paper, make sure that you address security issues using standard terms, exemplia gratis, 5 pillars 1A, 5 pillars information security. And you are to see the resources listed under week 1 and under course resources cybersecurity concepts review for definitions and terminology of those standard terms. Speaking of standard, you have standard formatting instructions, APA, which we're going to be looking at in the model paper, and you are to submit your work as a Microsoft Word document, docx or doc, and some additional information. While you will not be penalized for writing more than 3 pages, the professor wants to emphasize the need for clarity and conciseness. If your essay is shorter than 3 pages, there's the high possibility you may not have sufficient content to meet the requirements. Of course, you're expected to write grammatically. Please spell check your work, grammar check it, verifying your punctuation, and reviewing your work for word usage and sentence flow and paragraph flow. And of course, you must cite your sources using the APA in-text citation and reference list scheme. Okay, let's take a look at the paper now. Of course, the name has been changed. On page 2, we begin with the introduction. And remember that the case study called for these 4 sections. And one of those sections was entitled Introduction. So notice how Pat Doe is very clever in labeling each of the 4 sections. Here in this section, you are to provide an overview of this entire idea of endpoint protection platforms using the terminology. In any network, securing a company's data is of utmost concern. A good network security design should always base, and that should be its information, because design is singular, that word should be singular. On the 5 pillars of information security. These pillars consist of protection, detection, reaction, documentation, and prevention. And notice we're now going to have a discussion of each one of those. Protection of company data involves not only what needs to be protected, but how it should be protected and what value the data has. Now, for some reason, we have cost consideration in here, and yet that is not listed in the sentence above. So we have a little bit of a problem with parallelism. Cost consideration must be made when evaluating a solution. That should come probably after this discussion of protection, detection, reaction, documentation, and prevention. Because now we go to detection. It involves the evaluation of both existing threats as well as trends hinting at future threats. Then we have reaction, relates to the steps that should be in place once an incident has occurred. Documentation is just that, documentation of threats and how the threats were remediated. And finally, prevention deals with the proper analysis of threats and the implementation of solutions to prevent future threats based upon this. Now, I want you to also notice that this in-text citation is not in the same font and font size as the rest of the body copy, and it should be. So we need to go up here to Home and change this to 12 point Times New Roman. So be sure that everything in your APA paper is Times New Roman 12 point. And as we said, this sentence is a little bit out of place and probably should come afterwards. Continuing with this overview now, for an organization to properly address the 5 pillars of information security, and that should be it. An organization in America is considered singular, therefore should be referred to by it. It must implement some form of an endpoint protection program, EPP. Gartner defines an EPP as a security solution that integrates many aspects of client security. An EPP will have various components to it, such as antivirus protection, anti-spyware protection, application control, and a firewall client. A robust EPP solution will also include some form of enterprise management that can control updates and security patches. A good enterprise solution can also perform functions such as device control, file encryption, whole disk encryption, and data loss prevention. A more robust EPP will also be available for clients other than PCs, such as tablets or smartphones. Gartner 2016, and notice that this in-text citation does indeed follow the Times New Roman 12 point. Keep in mind that your in-text citations must refer to a full and complete reference citation on the last page of your paper, which we see here. Now, this student has 2 references to Gartner, Gartner 2016 and Gartner 2016 February 1. So since this in-text citation had only Gartner 2016, we can assume that it referred to the first use of a Gartner source, Gartner period 2016. And that's how you handle in-text and reference citations when you have more than one done by the same author. Okay, let's go to the next section, which is clearly labeled. Remember these sections: an introduction, which we just had, and then a review of the features of your selected vendor and product. Let's go back and see if we find that review. There it is, labeled very clearly, Product Review. This briefing will focus on McAfee Complete Endpoint Protection. McAfee Complete Endpoint Protection offers many features and capabilities to help secure a client, and going to use ultimately as a sentence interrupter needs to be set off with commas on both sides. Otherwise, the and is simply joining 2 items in series. These include McAfee Endpoint Security, Dynamic Control Application, Intrusion Prevention, and Firewall for desktops and laptops, Global Threat Intelligence, Web Control with URL Filtering and Safe Search, Email Anti-Malware and Anti-Spam, Device Control, and McAfee EPO software. So we have a list of the features of this particular product. We have a further description of this product in these bullet points. McAfee Endpoint Security utilizes communication between various endpoint defense technology in order to build a solid defense against threats before they can have a major effect on the clients and network. It also offers zero-day threat protection. It is always up to date. Dynamic Application Control offers protection from rogue application and instances of malware that would threaten the security of a client and network. So notice that we listed, or the student listed, the features of this particular product and now is discussing them in detail. Intrusion prevention and firewall for desktops and laptops helps to protect clients and the network from zero-day exploits, as well as reduce the urgency of patch management. Scrolling down, Global Threat Intelligence offers the protection of millions of threat sensors in over 120 countries to build a strong library of threat intelligence. McAfee is indeed a very large group. Web Control with URL filtering and safe search helps protect clients. That should be by issuing. Remember to proofread carefully, and the best way to do that is either yourself or someone else read this out loud, because your eyes will skim over that exact kind of error. By issuing warnings when an unsafe website is detected, it also offers the capability to block unsafe websites. Continuing with the discussion of the features of this product. Email anti-malware and anti-spam offer a solution to prevent malware from infecting clients by detecting, cleaning, and blocking messages at the email server. Two more features. Device control offers an organization the ability to control what devices, such as USB drives or DVD drives, can be used on a client. McAfee EPO software creates a centralized console to control the entire enterprise suite. It offers managed policies, reporting capabilities, and compliance control. So those are the features described in a positive way, but this analysis is, of course, going to include the deficiencies, and here they are. There are a few deficiencies to McAfee Complete Endpoint Protection. According to a Gartner report, these include the fact that older versions contain multiple agents that make deploying a solution fairly complex. So that becomes an IT challenge. This is being addressed in the most current version of the EPP. Also, the security framework is slowly evolving, and some components, such as policy and context layer integration, have yet to be released. There is a shift occurring from EPO real-time products to McAfee Active Response. These are still missing capabilities in McAfee Active Response. And again, that's our same Gartner 2016, the first one. Now we discuss product implementation. If we go back to the assignment instructions, you see that the third section is indeed how the product can be used. In other words, implementation. So we are again using the APA subheading to clearly indicate this part of our paper. The implementation of McAfee Complete Endpoint Protection will help the organization reduce risk of data loss, increase resistance to malware threats and attacks, and decrease vulnerabilities for the clients and within the network. It's very well written. The prevention of data loss can be achieved by the use of the device control and managing policies with the EPO console. The increase of resistance to malware threats and attacks can be achieved through McAfee Endpoint Security and the global threat intelligence offered by this EPP. The decrease of vulnerabilities can be achieved by use of intrusion prevention and firewall for desktops and laptops, web control with URL filtering and safe search, and the email anti-malware and anti-spam. So product implementation basically saying how that product meets the client's needs. And remember, the last section of your assignment calls for you to have a closing section in which you restate your recommendation for the product, including 3 important benefits. Let's look at the paper and see if the student does that. So here we have our APA Level 1 subheading. In summation, a proper EPP solution is critical to an organization's, more proofreading problems left out the apostrophe for possession. An organization's overall security posture. It can help an organization address more proofreading problems. This often happens in the last paragraph when you get in a hurry to finish and indicates a need to proofread more carefully after completing the document. Address the 5 pillars of information security. When choosing an EPP solution, it is best to consider one that provides as many capabilities in one tool as possible, while also offering some form of centralized management. So there's a benefit. McAfee Complete Endpoint Protection meets these criteria. That's a good analysis, and then an application of that analysis to the product selected. It includes the abilities to build an active library of threats by accessing millions of resources in over 120 countries. This is a word "this" used alone as an example of faulty broad pronoun reference. This is a word that needs to be followed by another word that indicates what this refers to. This cannot stand alone as a subject of a sentence. So we add in the word capability. This capability allows for protection against current threats as well as future threats. It allows for the control of devices such as USB drives and DVD drives. It provides safe web browsing as well as email protection. And finally, McAfee Complete Endpoint Protection offers a centralized management console that provides reporting, policy management, and compliance control. While there are a few deficiencies, as there will be with any solution, these deficiencies will be addressed in future updates to the EPP solution. So there is a strong recommendation for the McAfee Complete Endpoint Protection Program by pointing out its benefits and indicating that any deficiencies are going to be addressed in the future. Let's look at the sources, the references. One thing that we can say about them is that APA does not want live URLs, so we need to go to Insert, Hyperlink, and remove the link for all of these URLs. Otherwise, the references are in pretty good shape. One thing I did notice is that although we were supposed to have two different uses of Gartner, both in-text citations simply said Gartner 2016. One of the in-text citations should include the February 1 date in order to distinguish between these two references to Gartner. So this was not a perfect paper, but it was an excellent paper. It was an excellent paper because the student, Pat Doe, formatted things in APA style pretty darn well, but more importantly, divided up his or her response exactly according to the assignment directions. And in each section, performed the kind of analysis and listing, provided the kind of information required by those assignment directions. Congratulations, Pat Doe, and I hope that you do just as well on your paper.